They are Persians and
What percent?
predominantly Shia. Okay, this is cute.
It's not
okay.
even. You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay,
actually,
I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the
I'm
one
not saying that.
who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here, because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting Israel.
High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay.
Iran. Right. So, we're talking about you can favor one thing, but you could also favor another thing more. So, yes, the U.S. public plurality and the vast majority of Republicans would favor U.S. airstrikes if Iran's trying to make a nuclear weapon. But what do they prefer? To limit the risk of Iran making nuclear weapons, the American public prefers what? They prefer a negotiated agreement. 69% of the American public prefer a negotiated agreement as compared to 14% who prefer taking military action. I will note, Sarah Seidner, that this 69% includes 64% of Republicans. So even if Republicans, the clear majority, would in fact support airstrikes on Iran, U.S. airstrikes on Iran, they prefer a negotiated agreement.
I felt compelled to talk about this conflict once again. Tucker Carlson has this viral clip going online. At the time of me making this video, you can watch his full interview with Ted Cruz. There's a lot of media spin that's going on around here, and I feel like every news outlet, every pro-Israel pundit, and I already told you guys, I'm America first. I'm not anti-Israel. I'm not pro-Israel. I'm just pro my country. And right now, I don't feel like we need to be directly involved. Now, the more realistic thing that I'm seeing right now is that we're just going to keep arming Israel. Israel keeps making these attacks, and eventually put enough pressure on the Iran supreme leader to come to the table and make a peace agreement, make a peace deal. And I think this is the correct kind of stance that Donald Trump is actively doing. Now, there's a lot of, I don't know what it is. I haven't been on X, bro. Navigating X has been so, annoying. And hopefully this video helps you guys get a better understanding of what's going on, and not coming from a balanced perspective for the most part, is that I'm not trying to convince anyone to be for Israel, be anti-Israel. I'm just trying to state what's going on. And the reality is, it looks like Donald Trump is trying to thread this needle, and he's threading it as good as anybody right now. Because if you saw from the intro of this video, he's doing it, the action that Donald Trump is doing currently is popular with the American people. Hey, he's kind of appeasing both sides, but he's operating in a gray area where it's satisfactory enough for the pro-Israel people not to give him a hard time. Look, I'm arming Israel to do these attacks. And then the anti-intervention side, look, I'm not actively involving tankers and all this stuff in the airspace. Most likely, all I'm doing is refueling some of the equipment that we gave Israel. And Israel's doing the attacks. Now, there's been a lot of, I don't want to call it propaganda, but there's a lot of narratives being pushed on people on the right, from the Ben Shapiro's of the world, from the Dave Rubins of the world, trying to convince us that we want nuclear strikes. America want this. America want U.S. to be involved. Iran can't have nuclear weapons. I understand all that. I understand all the threats. I understand, but I don't operate off of fear. You can't scare me into just going along with crap, because you did the same thing with the weapons of mass destruction. And look how it turns out. And it seemed like my previous synopsis was right, that the only way you can stop Iran from trying to develop nuclear weaponry is to create regime change.
So speaking of the supreme leader, the president posted on his Truth Social platform that America knows where he is, that we could, it implied, assassinate him, but we will not for the moment. Do you think the United States should assassinate the supreme leader if they can?
The assassination of any individual, any foreign dignitary or leader on this, but we most certainly need to have regime change in Iran. This is the same regime that's threatened America and Americans. This is the same regime that oppresses their own people, that they use the money that they get from oil money to be able to put towards terrorism, to be able to kill us and our allies. They chant death to America in the streets. We definitely need a new regime there, but that's not necessarily saying that we need to be able to assassinate the Ayatollah as well. But we definitely need to have new leadership there.
Overall, I feel like there's more support for Donald Trump's positions than is comically acknowledged. Oppose Iran getting a nuclear weapon. I mean, look at this. 79% of adults agree on that. They agree with Donald Trump. Iran cannot get a nuclear weapon. 83% of Republicans, 79% of independents, 79% of Democrats. When you get 79% of Democrats and 83% of Republicans agreeing on anything, you know that that position is the very clear majority in this country. And so the American public is with Donald Trump. They definitely oppose Iran getting nuclear weapons.
So this is a nuance here, but, Trump and Netanyahu both arguing that Iran is close to being capable of making a nuclear weapon. If that is the case, what is the feeling of Americans as to whether the United States should get involved in this conflict?
Right. If you buy Donald Trump's theory of the case, and I think that's important to note, this is polling from April. If Iran's trying to make a nuclear weapon, look at this. Overall, you get the slight plurality. I mean, it's within the margin of error, but the slight plurality of Americans actually favor U.S. airstrikes compared to 47% opposing it. Now, here's the other nugget I'll note, right? There's been a lot of talk online and on social media and in podcasts of a divide within the Republican ranks. But here on this question, if Iran's trying to make a nuclear weapon, look at that. 69% of Republicans, the clear vast majority of Republicans, favor U.S. airstrikes on Iran, on their nuclear facilities. But there is this substantial minority, 27%, who oppose such an idea. So it's not surprising you're hearing those other voices besides Donald Trump out there. There are plenty of them in the Republican ranks who oppose the U.S. striking Iran if they're trying to make a nuclear weapon. But the clear majority of Republicans are with Donald Trump if, in fact, Iran is trying to make nuclear weapons. They do, in fact, potentially favor U.S. airstrikes.
And before we go into the clip that you guys came here for, where I found an interesting portion of the interview where Tucker and Ted, they go at it. They spark starts flying, whatever. But I want to point this out why I think regime change is a bad idea. I have not seen it work. I've seen statements where Lindsey Graham talk about how, if we only had assassinated Adolf Hitler before he rose to power fully and caused World War I, I believe, or World War II, I forget. Sorry, guys. My history is kerfuddled right now. That he could have prevented the issue. But in my head, I'm like, how you knew you wouldn't have given an opportunity for even worse person, right? And this is the thing that, we had these thought experiences before, right? Like, if you can go back in time and stop disaster, would you do it? But the underlying tone of that question is how you know you're not allowing something worse to take its place. And this is the same argument that I have about regime change. This is insane. Regime change will result in a bloody civil war, right? And this is the funny part. I don't make the same argument about Palestine, Gaza, right? The Palestinians have a government, right? And Israel talk about all the time how Gazans are extremists. They allow the government to do whatever they're protecting the Palestinian government that attacks Israel and all this stuff, and how the Gazan people are complicit in it. A group of people being ruled by Iran. What makes you think that they're not going to put up someone even more extreme than the one we're dealing with now? And this is all I'm talking about. We're doing all this based on some theories, based on some assumptions. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. And this is the caution I think Tucker Carlson is coming from. Because all the criticisms, Ben Shapiro, I watched a video of Ben Shapiro, and I listen to all sides. I listen to the pro-Israel people and the anti-involvement people. And the blatant, the things that I get mad liberals do, character assassination, passive-aggressive attacks, innuendo, assumptions. Ben Shapiro was doing the same thing about Tucker Carlson and his criticism. Tucker Carlson didn't even attack Trump. All he said is, hey, I want to caution Trump that he can split the base on this issue.
That the United States was, quote, complicit, Donald Trump was complicit in Israel's, quote unquote, act of war. The title of the newsletter was, this could be the final newsletter before all-out war, in which he suggested basically World War III was going to break out. The newsletter says, while the American military may not have physically perpetrated the assault, years of funding and sending weapons to Israel, which Donald Trump just bragged about on Truth Social, undeniably placed the U.S. at the center of last night's events. Washington knew these attacks would happen. They aided Israel in carrying them out. Politicians purporting to be America first can't now credibly turn around and say they had nothing to do with it. Our country is in deep. So Donald Trump is purporting to be America first. Only Tucker Carlson, who tours Moscow supermarkets to talk about how good the bread is and how he wishes that our subway system ran just like Moscow's. Only Tucker Carlson, who does interviews with the leadership of Qatar and talks about how they are an amazing ally to the United States while they simultaneously support Hamas. Only Tucker Carlson, who hosts people like Daryl Cooper, the greatest and most honest historian in America, according to Tucker Carlson, who over the weekend suggested that America should launch missiles against Tel Aviv. Only Tucker Carlson is truly America first, not Donald Trump. Not Donald Trump, who built the America First movement, who built MAGA. Only Tucker Carlson and his friends are truly MAGA and America first. And then Tucker over the weekend doubled down on this. He said, the real divide isn't between people who support Israel and people who support Iran or the Palestinians. The real divide is between those who casually encourage violence and those who seek to prevent it, between warmongers and peacemakers. Again, this is Tucker's shtick, is that anyone who opposes him is a warmonger who wants more war and just loves war, loves. Okay.
This is where Ben loses me, right? He didn't really go at what, like, he didn't take Tucker Carlson's argument at, like, honestly, right? In my view, he's trying to parrot Tucker Carlson's concern with, oh, this is Tucker Carlson trying to control who is MAGA first and who's not, who's American first and who's not, right? Oh, this is his stick. This is Tucker Carlson's stick. That every time you catch him in this stuff, he designate, oh, you're for warmongering. When Ben Shapiro does the same thing. If you have any critiques, right? If you have any critiques about Israel, people call you an idiot. Oh, you're pro Iran. You're pro-Iran. You want the world to get into World War III, huh? Because you're not scared that Iran's gonna get nukes? Okay, after they nuke Tel Aviv, they're gonna nuke New York. You're playing the same game. This is almost like an accusation is your confession. This is insane. Regime change will result in a bloody civil war, killing thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, creating another massive Muslim refugee crisis. Toppling a leader is never as easy as you think. It's almost always result in further involvement, a civil war, and chaos. Resist this. I think the further involvement is why they want the war in the first place, because of the cascading effect that will happen once we get involved. Then we got the refugees crisis. We do another nation building project again. A lot of money, that's a lot of reasons to justify what? More government spending. And I think this is why a lot of politicians are pro-war. But enough of my rambling. I think we wanted to go into the real reason you're here. Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz going at it. So we'll get right into it, and then I'll give my commentary throughout.
This is the most powerful country in the world. If you're calling for toppling in government, it's incumbent on you to know something about the country and to think through the consequences of that. And you haven't, and you don't. And I'm saying that's reckless.
I haven't thought, okay, you engage in reckless rhetoric with no facts. And to be clear,
I'm not calling for the overthrow of a government. You
put out a newsletter attacking Donald Trump and calling him complicit.
Never
I can
attacked Donald Trump.
Yes, you have. And by the way,
I campaigned for Donald Trump.
Okay, yes.
And this is after anti-Semitism, this is the last refuge. You're an anti-Semite and you hate Trump.
Okay,
I love Trump.
I will read. You put out a whole newsletter saying Trump has abandoned America first. And here's what Trump said in response. Well, considering that I'm the one that developed America first and considering that the term wasn't used until I came along, I think I'm the one who decides that. For those people who say they want peace, you can't have peace if Iran has a nuclear weapon. So for all of those wonderful people who don't want to do anything about Iran having a nuclear weapon, that's not peace. That was directed at you.
Man, you got me. Busted.
No, I'm just saying.
Look, my views, look, I like Trump. I campaigned for Trump. I know Trump. I talked to him last night. I'm not against Trump, and you know that.
But you're against his foreign policy.
I think that we should be very careful about
it's like, what happened to the nuance, right? You're against his foreign policy. Well, I'm not against his foreign policy. You're just against a specific decision. Hey, look, let's try this good cop, bad cop thing. That's why I was like, yo, this looks like the most realistic standard right now. Arm Israel defensively, let them attack, whatever, but they know they can't finish the job. Like, this is Israel. Israel can't finish the job. So Trump's like, I think Trump's sitting back and waiting like he's doing now, looking over his options, putting out news in the media to use the media as a way to pressure these guys to come into the table. I support that. Do any tactic you need to put these guys on the table. But if you assassinate or you kill all the leadership there, as you saw from the intro, the senator was talking about, hey, we need to do a regime change. This is the cascading effect that Americans are concerned about. That we know these senators in Congress will use as justification for let's throw more money, let's nation build all over again. Oh my God, look at all this conflict. We got to send more money to the military to resolve this. People know that this will be used to justify things that Americans don't want to go down the road and do this.
But you're against this foreign policy.
I think that we should be very careful about entering into more foreign wars that don't help us when our country is dying.
When you say
and our
don't
country
help
is
us,
dying.
Look, yes, focus on our country. I'm all for it. But the naivete.
You don't even know how much money this costs. You don't know anything about the country whose government you want to overthrow, and you're calling me reckless.
I want to stop a lunatic who wants to murder us from getting nuclear weapons
Fair.
that could kill millions of Americans.
Fair.
You say, I can't see how that benefits America in any way. That is bizarre. And by the way,
bizarre.
Isolationism, your foreign policy is the foreign policy of Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama.
Oh, absolutely.
And it doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm a big leftist. This is so silly. I'm Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama. Okay. Let me just say one last thing.
So how is your foreign policy different from Jimmy Carter's? Seriously.
Please.
But I asked that question seriously.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Jimmy Carter?
So a part of me is just like, this is where I'm talking about with the gatekeeping, right? Oh, you're not really a conservative because you're going against war, right? And you saw it from the polls. Majority of people who support airstrikes on Iran are GOP members, people of the Republican Party. And this is where part of when he starts becoming more of an independent. This is where you start getting my independent leanings. And I think the world has taken advantage of America for so long that when America actually does things in its own best interest, people think it's anti-them. And this is my problem with the pro-Israel side. Just because I'm calling out things that doesn't really benefit us, and you don't have an argument for why it benefits us. Oh, he's a threat to you too. Who's Iran more of a threat to? Me, Americans, or Israel? And this is what I'm talking about. This disguising the interest. Like, we know where you stand. Just be open and honest about that. Don't sit here trying to rope us into this stuff. Hey, it's a threat to us. We're your allies. Help us protect. Okay, here. This is what we're willing to do. And you're demanding war from America? And it really, Iran, it's Iran's fault. I agree. It's Iran's fault. Because if Iran just took the peace deal, they wouldn't be in this situation in the first place. So yes, the blame falls on Iran. End of the day, I understand that. But this caution, you can't just write it off and call it anti-Semitism. It's dumb. That's character assassination. That's an attempt to censor dissident. It's an attempt to censor disagreement. And I ain't going to stand for it. No.
So what century is this? I am the product of the last 25 years, watching carefully, being involved in the periphery, and I see an unending string of foreign policy disasters that have impoverished and hurt our country.
Unending string.
Unending string. They would include Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, and our inability to stop the Houthis, by the way, in Yemen, which exposes us as weak, and I grieve over that. So these are failures. You helped preside over some of them as a member of the Senate.
What failures, foreign policy failures, have I presided over?
Well, we were unable to beat Russia in the war that you supported against Russia. You've been spending the last 3 years telling us that Vladimir Putin is evil and we're going to beat him with other people's children, and 1 million of those kids are now dead. You've never apologized for that. That was a full failure.
By the way, look, the level of number of falsehoods you lay out just in one statement are rather
You haven't supported the war against Russia?
Are rather stunning. So the war against Russia was caused, which I have explained at great detail, by Joe Biden's weakness.
But you supported the war.
If you want to...
Okay, it was incentivized by Joe Biden's weakness. Yes, I understand that. Putin started the war. Yes, I understand that. But what was Putin's justification for that? Hey, NATO, I don't want you to walk eastward towards my borders. I don't want you guys to incorporate Ukraine. I want Ukraine as a buffer zone between me and NATO. And when Ukraine says, hey, or Joe Biden rather, hey, we're going to open up talks with Ukraine to have them as part of NATO, it went against Russia's interest. And Russia took action to defend its own interest. Like, I don't play these moral games. I don't care about these moral games because when it comes to geopolitics, there's no morality in that. You can play the morality game with domestic policy, but when it comes to foreign policy, The only thing that matters is power. It's, hey, do I have the power to defend my interests or don't I?
We can talk Russia and Ukraine. I'm happy to talk about it.
Do you think that's been a success?
No, it's been an absolute disaster.
Okay, but you supported it. Shouldn't you apologize?
No, you should apologize. I'm not going to engage in the demanding of apologies. So
I'm like, that's my point. Is all these failures and no one ever says I'm sorry.
Matter, or do you just throw out if you want to talk, we can talk.
Okay, I do. I want to know why that seems like a true disaster for the United States.
The argument is there's been no proven track record that it ended positively for the United States. Regime change, and then something more extreme comes and take the place of the old guy you took off. Oh, this guy, he's crazy. Let's take him out. Okay, we take him out. The new guy comes in. He plays your game for a couple years. Then 1 year, he just stopped complying with you, and then he becomes a threat. And then it's it's like a loop, a doom loop that we just keep getting caught in over and over and over again. At one point, Americans are like, yo, when are we gonna stop playing this game? It don't work for us. We don't understand our culture. Let's say we do regime change on Iran. This is my final thoughts. Let's say we do a regime change in Iran. We don't understand these people's culture. We don't understand what resonates with them. We'll put in somebody, they gonna think he's a heretic, overthrow him, and then some new guy comes up. This is the caution, and I think many Americans are just like, yo, look, guys, we had 5 wars to try. You tried this Afghanistan. The minute we leave Afghanistan, chaos. It went right back to where it was before we came in there. So that means we'll have to be there forever to maintain peace and order. What? How much money that will cost the American taxpayer? And you wonder why our deficit is so damn high. And this is the interest. Americans are starting to become a little bit more selfish with their money, with their foreign aid, because this is why we wanted Trump to dispel all these immigrants out of our country. Do you want to know the immigration numbers currently? No new immigrants have been let into the country since Donald Trump came in, at least illegal immigrants, illegal migration, right? And no amount of justification is going to move people into just supporting what you guys want us to do in this foreign policy realm. And I think that's the sentiment American people have right now. The sentiment of the American people is domestic over foreign. Domestic over foreign. This is the numbers that America want to see. 0 illegal migrants released into the U.S. We're done. We're done being used as people taking advantage of our empathy to get their ends. It's almost starting to come across manipulative. And I don't want to be manipulated into a decision. And I think this is what's going on. All these politicians coming out speaking about, oh, we need this war. We need this war. Lindsey Graham, we need regime change. We'll do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Really? Lindsey Graham? That's easy for you to say. You got no kids. You got no children. It's easy for you. When you die, you getting up there, Lindsey Graham. When you die, you don't have to suffer the ramifications of the decisions you make now. That's for the younger generation to deal with. That's what for the millennials and the Gen Z citizens of the United States of America have to deal with. The ramifications of your actions, of your decisions. Honestly, it's a struggle for influence. That's what's going on right here. Everyone's trying to craft the narrative because they're trying to influence public sentiment to support their decisions, their approach. But right now, as it stands with me recording this video, majority of Americans want Trump to pursue peace. So the next scenario will be, Iran don't want peace. Iran just denied conditions to surrender. Okay, Trump, you can turn up the pressure just a little bit more. Go ahead, hit them with a couple more missiles, Israel. Okay, let them assassinate one more high-ranking official. Are you ready to talk now? Americans, I think they'll be fine with that approach, the boiling frog approach. But if you just go, now let's go in, U.S. military direct involvement, I think that's going to be too fast of an escalation. But, time will tell. Time will tell. Let me know your thoughts and perspective in the comment section below. I'll be interested to hear what you guys have to say. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Please share this video if you feel so inclined. It really does help me on the algorithm. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.